literally 6 months, my life completely changed, getting one of my dream cars and hopefully a Lamb soon. Well, we got the Lambo, guys. I figured it's time to do a My Story video. So, let's see how we made it happen. At 15 years old, there was one decision that changed my life for the better. And that decision was getting into day trading. I'm Luke Bianco, and I thought it's about time to share my story with you guys because I haven't dedicated a whole video regarding my whole story. So it's an interesting one. It's one where I put in a lot of work. There was a lot of ups and downs, but we made it. And that's why we have a cool background with the nice Lamborghini behind. All right, first off, let's start from the very beginning. I come from a normal middle-class family, both my parents working 9 to 5. And growing up, there was a legal thing where it kind of put some financial stress on my family. So we were all right, but we weren't doing insanely well like others. And so it always made me kind of appreciate and be grateful for the small things in life. But I would remember, I was younger, my friends would, get maybe a certain clothing item or they would get a car and I wouldn't. And it made me really want whatever they got or want a car because they got a car. I wasn't given any handouts. So I had to be the guy to do it for myself and to break out of the cycle, as they call it. So I was born in Canada. I have a younger brother. And the one thing I will say is that I do really appreciate my parents because they're really supportive of everything I do. As a kid, I was always very entrepreneurial. When I was younger, I had a lawn care business where I would just go to my local neighbors, mow their lawns, get like $20 cash for each house. And it's just something I like to do because it was not that normal job. I get to work on my own hours. I get to decide whose lawn I'm cutting. I don't have to have a boss telling me anything, which that's what I liked. So I kind of always had that mindset in me from a young age where I appreciate the freedom. And moving on, my first ever job, I was a cashier. And I highly recommend everyone to get jobs when you're younger because it makes you value and appreciate not only money, but also freedom as well. Because I remember I was a cashier for 3 years, right? I would be standing still in one spot, pretty much repeating the same thing over and over again. Hi, how are you? Do you have a points card? All that stuff. It was good, don't get me wrong. I met some cool people. I was working, building some experience for myself at a young age. And obviously, I needed this to fund future businesses, which is gonna come. But I remember the feeling of being a cashier, and it felt like I was a slave, to be fully honest with you, because again, it felt like I was a robot, repeating the same thing, standing still. My mind was wandering. I wanted to just be free, but it felt like I was trapped. So this was about the same time that I was in high school, and the typical stuff you see online with the entrepreneurs is that, yeah, I failed my classes, I dropped out of high school, then I became a super successful millionaire. And let me tell you something about my story is that that's not always the case. I actually had really good grades in high school. I had like A's, A pluses, which led me to get into one of the best business programs in all of Canada with like a 4% acceptance rate. So I was very intelligent, and part of that has to do to my dad. He is an accountant, a CPA, so he's good with numbers, he's good with finance, and he has a degree in economics. And that's part what led me into trading, because when he was younger, he would do stocks. Now, he didn't fully, master the game of stocks, but he told me he would have some stocks that made him money and stocks that he lost some money. But I'm like, the idea of it was so cool because everything was online. You can make money from online when he didn't have a boss telling him to do this. He could be in a different country. He could be in Miami buying a stock, making money. I'm like, let me master this game. So this was when I was in high school, and I remember he was very supportive of me because I wanted to give stocks a shot. And so I started with stocks at 15 years old. I remember he let me open an account under his name. I put a couple thousand into it, and I'm not gonna lie, it was actually very stressful as a 15-year-old because not only was it my money in the account, my brother agreed to splitting the account because there was like a limit, I think 5 or 10,000 USD that you needed to deposit. And I was still young. I was still working my jobs. I have also one of the best brothers you could imagine because he's always there for me, supportive, helping me with businesses. So anyways, we pool our money together. We open the account 50-50. So that's why I was a little more stressed, because I could be losing not only my money, but my brother's money. And I remember the first few trades, I made some money. It was like 40 bucks, 100 bucks. I'm like, I just made $100 in, it was like 30 minutes, an hour. That was my whole shift as a cashier, probably made $100, $120. That's right there when I realized I need to make this work. Fast forward through a couple of months later, I ended up losing a couple trades. I think I was down about $500 on one trade. And I'll be honest, that scared me, guys, because number one, I didn't have a true edge within the markets at that time. I was just going based off kind of what I knew and some YouTube videos I watched. Then also, again, it wasn't just my money, it was my brother's. So I think that's what led me to it. And this was all during COVID as well. So that was already a stressful time. Anyways, believe it or not, guys, I took a break and I stepped away from the markets and kind of just took a break. Maybe I'll get back into it in the future. I'm gonna leave it. So after that, I had many different jobs as well. I was a soccer referee, again, just making like $20, $30 a game. I had a bunch of different side hustles. Also during COVID, I tried drop shipping on Shopify. And full transparency, the first week, I did like $1,000 my first ever week, but then this is what happened. It was the Chinese New Year and I was relying on my suppliers. So my suppliers actually shut down right after that first week that I started, and I couldn't get any orders out. So I had to close down that store. But it was cool because I had a big TikTok page and it was selling an airsoft tracer unit. If you guys know what that is, it's kind of like paintball. But I did that all organically, so I made about 50%. I made about $500. The thing I didn't like about that was, again, I was reliant on suppliers or something else to just take me out of business. And it also wasn't 100% profit. Like, yeah, the $1,000 looked cool, but I don't get to keep all that $1,000. So I kept doing some side hustles. So at the retail store I worked for, I remember there was like an 80% discount. And I'm like, I could flip this easily for $100 a vacuum. That's like my whole shift. So I'd buy a couple of vacuums. So I'd see them at work, put them to the side, and then I'd come back later with my family, buy like 2, 3 of them, flip them, make a couple $100. And then it hit me that I want to get back into trading. I want to make this work. I'm tired of this, where if I learn the skill properly and if I'm right, I could keep 100% of the profits. I don't have a boss telling me what to do. I trade for like 30 minutes, maybe a couple hours a day. That is the ultimate freedom. So I'm like, you know what? I have to make this work. So I self-taught myself everything I know. And I'll be honest, guys, I lost a lot more money as well when I redid that, but I kept to it because I was funding my trading with a job. And that's something I recommend for you guys as well. You know, you can't just start trading with no money. Nowadays you have funded accounts, which back then they didn't have, so you can start with less money, but I still recommend you have a job to fund your trading while you're making this work. So I actually got back into it. It's still about high school. I remember the stock was called UGAZ, U-G-A-Z. It was a 3 times leveraged stock, and this was the first ever big stock that I made some money on. I was in school, constantly checking the charts, refreshing, seeing the numbers go up. Is the price going up? Am I making money? And I would pull up my calculator in class, and I'd be like calculating how much I'm up. And it was like $750 or $1,000. And my friend next to me is like, what are you calculating? I'm like, dude, I just made this from stocks. And he's like, what stocks? So that was the cool part, because I had a dad to kind of, you know, lead me into this market at such a young age. And I kind of taught my friend, and he was fascinated because I literally showed him, like, I was up $750 in school. I was probably the only person in school to do that, which is cool. Nowadays, you know, you have a lot more people getting into it, so that's really cool as well, and it's inspiring. So after that, I'm like, okay, I'm going all in. Like, I made this amount of money, maybe my whole monthly paycheck as a cashier. I'm going all in on trading. Then I transitioned into options, and while options does definitely work for some people, it didn't work for me. It didn't suit my strategy. I lost a little bit of money. So I'm like, okay, maybe options isn't for me, but I want to make trading work. And I would be doing this still while having my jobs, while at school, making this all work. people don't see. There was all those years, all those ups and downs where, you know, I got back into it. I didn't quit and I figured out the game. So now I developed a really strong edge within the markets. And I remember trading as I was working my new job being a bartender. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the best job I had. It was so laid back. The money was a little bit better from the tip money. And the best part about being a bartender was I solely picked it because, yeah, I get a little bit more money from tips, but also because my hours fit perfectly for trading. I could start from like the afternoon to the evening where I could trade London session and I could trade New York session during the day, or the morning, sorry. My only focus was to get additional income and keep funding it into my trading account, where my trading account would become to a really good size where I could start making a lot of money per trade. At the time, being a young kid, I was making like $2,000, $3,000 in a trade. And the one time where it clicked for me was I was literally at work being a bartender. I looked on my phone, saw I was up about $2,500, and I'm like, I literally still just made what I made in like my whole paycheck as a bartender, even more, from my phone. And that's when it clocked to me, I'm quitting every job. And so that was when I was officially a full-time trader and made it work. So fast forward many 5-figure days, consistently making good profits in the market. And I would even do some flipping challenges where I started documenting it for you guys on Instagram, where I did like 2,000 to I think 12,000 in about 2 weeks that was, and then 2,000 to like 8,400 in a week. That was documented on my YouTube that you guys could go check out. Rewinding, one thing I do want to say was that really helped to get to that level was mindset. And as a kid, I would read a ton of books. I would read a bunch of business books, and my mom gave me one book where it was a book about manifestation, and I swear that changed my life, because after reading that book, I remember I would write checks, $1 million on a check, and pretend like I got that $1 million, pretend I got it from trading, and I would feel what it felt like to be, you know, a millionaire and to have a Lamborghini and to be a successful trader. I would feel that energy. And then what I did was I put a vision board in my room. So I would put everything I want my life to kind of look like. Had a Lamborghini, it had trading on there, it had a bunch of other stuff, but the point is I manifested this. And one thing people get wrong about manifestation is that you just have to like attract the energy, feel it, believe it, but that is not manifestation. That is the first part. The second part is now doing the work while having the vision in mind. So you have to do part 1 and part 2. And so for me, the part 2 was the work was learning trading, becoming a profitable trader, while still having the belief that I can make this work and that I'm eventually going to get this. Another cool little story was, as a kid, I would be obsessed with cars, and specifically Lamborghini, because it was just a symbol of success. It was a trophy. They were loud, they were fast. It beat everything. It's a Lamborghini. When I would go to car meets and I would see guys in a Lamborghini, I'd be like, how does this guy have a Lamborghini? I want to be like that guy. And so as a young kid, every time I would see a Lamborghini drive by, I'd be like, look, it's a Lambo, mom or dad. And then I would even convince them to drive an hour away to the closest Lamborghini dealership just to look at these cars. But what I was doing was I was manifesting being around the energy of these cars, being around Lamborghinis, and you know, they would let me sit in it and I would just vision myself owning one. And it's crazy that I literally bought a Lamborghini this year, guys, at 20 years old. So speaking of manifestation still, then I got an opportunity. My dad sent me a listing. Heather Ballantyne, one of the top Lamborghini sales reps in all of North America, where when we would go into the dealership, we would see her. She posted she was hiring for a position for social media or an assistant. My dad sent it to me. He's like, might as well apply. I'm like, you're right, might as well apply. And I applied not for the money, because the money was okay. It was more the experience. I wanted to be around the Lamborghini environment, be around Lamborghini owners, the networks. When I was filming the deliveries for Heather, I wanted to be around that energy. And it's crazy what being around good, successful energy does to you. And every time I would be filming for her, doing her social media, I'd be envisioning me coming to this dealership and buying a Lamborghini one day. And literally a couple years later, I made it happen. Again, that is because I believed in myself. And yeah, I took a break from trading, but I didn't fully give up. I went back into it and I had to make it work. Part two of that was making it work. Nobody saw the late nights, me back testing. Nobody saw the losses I had in the beginning of trading. Nobody saw me staying up literally London session. I would get no sleep, hitting amazing trades while I had a job. I'd be tired during the day, but I had to make it work. So nobody saw all that. And don't get me wrong, guys, there was a bunch of ups and downs. Still, during that process, did I have some doubts? Yeah. Did I lose some friends along the way? 100%, because there was like a 6-month period where I literally, as bad as it sounds, I didn't hang out with anyone. And I don't recommend that at all. I think having a social life is very important. But I really wanted to lock in, and those 6 months, I made a lot of stuff happen. So that was partly due to it. But hopefully this is an inspiring story for you, just seeing how I manifested this reality. I didn't come from money. I literally did this all by myself, no handouts. Now finally I'm in a position where I could give back and start to help teach others. I remember I bought an M3 all from the foreign exchange market, and a lot of my friends would ask me, yo, put me on trading, like I wanna learn. So I thought, you know what? Now it's time to start helping other people. If I could help my friends out, might as well also help other people on the internet, like the 15-year-old self that I was when I was first starting, because I had no one. So I thought, you know, imagine if I had someone to start at such a young age. I wouldn't have to lose that much money as I lost in the beginning, and I could have made it happen a lot quicker. So now I'm also motivating you guys with my social media and also helping my students with my community. That is the best part about trading, is because again, I have all the time to do this. I have so much freedom where I could travel anywhere. I only work a couple hours a day. So might as well give back to the community, keep myself a little busy as well, to try to inspire you guys so you could be successful one day as well and make trading work.